Hi guys, welcome back to Elephants in the Room. I am here with Lexi. I'm so excited. This is one of my friends and she's like the sweetest. I haven't known you for that long, but I feel like you're just the kind of person that like when you meet, you just feel like you've known them forever and they're just like a safe person and really sweet and just kind.
Same with you.
So yeah, it's just so fun to like have people that, especially in LA, that you feel like, you know, are just genuine people and stuff. And I feel like I've had a hard time finding a good group of girls. So I love our little group. It's so fun.
Amen. I feel like we all felt that way when we got together and spent time together in Big Bear. And then all the other times we've gotten to spend time all together, which is so hard to get that many adults together sometimes with everyone's schedules and lives. But it's so cool. I feel like everyone's always said the same thing, that they never expected to find this type of group of girls and support, and just especially in LA. Yeah,
I forget that it all kind of started, at least for me in Big Bear. I know you guys have always been like friends for, you guys have all been friends for quite a while, right?
A few years now, but it was me and Cover, and then me, Cover, Tabitha, and then some people would like trickle in once every few months. We'd get to see them, but really, like right when you came around was when everyone finally, maybe you were the missing piece. Maybe that's what we needed to get everyone to get together.
I'll take it. Yeah, it was so fun. We went to Big Bear for Covers. It was like, what did we call it? A bridal? Was it a bridal shower thing?
Surprise bridal?
Yeah, because it wasn't a bridal shower. It was something like that. But we all went, and it's funny because I had like hung out with Tabitha and Cover a couple times, but obviously then that was so fun. We all just bonded and talked about our trauma. It was great.
I know, it's easy to start on that topic when you go on a trip with someone and everyone's like tired and it's 3 a.m. and it's time for the deep conversation.
Yeah, we all started talking about our relationship trauma, our church trauma, which is so funny because I feel like, I feel like we're all just similar in that way. So it's cool to see. But anyways, that's a whole tangent. Well, I'm so excited to have you on today. So Lexi, obviously you do it all. You do social media in all forms. You're amazing. You're so hardworking. That's one thing I literally noticed about you when I met you. So you're like, guys, okay, I'm going to go edit. I have to go do this. I'll be back. Like you were just so vigilant, but like, yeah, just disciplined and hardworking. And so you just inspire me. And you own a business as well. It's called, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting now? You just brought me them. Hugs.
Yeah.
So cute. She just brought me an elephant and a little cow, and they're the cutest thing. Coco loves them. So, you know. But yeah, you do it all. So cool. And so honored to have you on here and just get to talk to you about your life and share your heart. But yeah, that's kind of a little introduction of you.
Uh-huh. That was a very nice introduction.
Okay,
wow,
good.
Thank you.
Good. It's always like, wait, what's the right thing to say? Because I feel like in LA, everyone does everything, you know. But yeah, you're so good at what you do. And yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit about you, just who Lexi is, so we can get a little intro of you?
Oh my gosh. You would think I'd be better at this after how many years I've been in the industry, but I guess I do a lot. I mostly specialize in content. For me, it's such a beautiful creative outlet, and to be able to give someone the gift of, laughing, smiling, crying, whatever that piece of content gives them, that's always what it's been about to me. And when I was in the hospital, that's the strength sometimes that I pulled from watching other people's content. I wanted to be able to like create that one day. So it's something that I love. I love meeting people that it's helped affect. And then having my mental health company is probably my biggest passion of all. But
so awesome. Okay, so take us a little bit down memory lane. Like, where did you grow up? Tell us about your childhood a little bit, just so we can get to know you better.
Oh man, let's see.
It's hard. That's like a very general statement, but like, just kind of, where'd you grow up? Like, what was high school like for you? What did you want to do when you grew up? Like all that.
I spent half my childhood in San Diego, and then Bakersfield. And if you know anything about Bakersfield, you know that it is a very unique town. It is called the a-hole of California for a reason.
Is it actually? That's so funny.
It's a really funny mix of, we have farm, we have gangs, we have
you got it
suburbs. All. We got it all, like whatever you want to get into. But growing up was interesting. I definitely went through a lot of bullying and a lot of mental health struggles, thus has led me to where I am now. It definitely got to the point a lot where I didn't know what to do, and I was so young, and it led to some really dark times. And I was thankful that my mom actually moved us back to San Diego at a certain point because the bullying had gotten so bad. And it kind of gave me a new chance to start over and try to make some better friends and get away from it. And so I finished out my last 2 years of high school there. Things did get a lot better. I got to know a lot about Mormonism at that high school.
Oh, fun!
I was like mostly Mormon, which is really interesting to go from a high school where there were like stabbings to
the Mormon
religious high school.
Yep.
So culture shock once again. But yeah, I don't know. Upbringing was very interesting. A lot focused on mental health, physical health struggles. Yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, I kind of love asking about like the childhood just because I feel like a lot of that, you know, affects us. It kind of leads into adulthood and also in a good way and a bad way. So like obviously you have a mental health company now, which is so cool because you've been able to like take the struggles that you've gone through and turn it into a passion and a career, which is awesome. But obviously there's also parts of that can still affect us and just habits and things that bleed into our life. So you've obviously been really open about your mental health struggle on social media, on other podcasts. So kind of take me back to childhood and that bullying and all of that. Like, what was that experience like for you as a kid and facing criticism? And kids are so mean. Like, kids are so mean. So how did that affect you as like a teenager, as a kid?
It's so hard because especially looking back and then looking at kids nowadays and realizing that you think you have the whole weight of the world on your shoulders, and you kind of do because your whole world is high school and friends and social life, and not being old enough to understand how to ask for help, to understand what that looks like, to understand how to deal with things. I mean, I'm still figuring it out and I'm mid-20s now, but it was really hard. I mean, my parents worked a lot. I didn't have any siblings. I have half siblings.
Oh, so you're an only child.
Yeah, I'm my mom's
know that.
only, but I have 3 half siblings and 2 of them I'm just now getting to know in my 20s. But growing up,
really isolating.
It was just me, you know, and I would go to school and the bullying started off pretty like, I'd say chill. It started off pretty light, you know, it was, you know, whispers here or there, or posting Twitter became a big thing at that time. I mean, thank gosh we didn't have TikTok and all that stuff. I can't imagine. But, you know, it progressed to there being a Twitter page dedicated to me killing myself. And people throwing food at me in the hallways, people vandalizing my house, slashing my tires, like spray painting really nasty genitalia on my mom's lawn, and her having to clean that up so that I didn't see it because she knew I was struggling. And she knew I was struggling, but she didn't know how bad because I didn't know how to tell someone that. I don't know what it is about being a kid, but it's almost like you think you'll get in trouble or something if you tell your mom that you're depressed and hurting yourself. And I just wish so badly, because I still struggle with asking for help, and I still struggle with reaching out and telling people like, hey, this is going on. I need someone to lean on. And I mean, maybe it comes from when I did try to lean on people when I was young, and they're young too, and they didn't understand. So they kind of left as if depression was contagious. But I mean, that's one thing is no matter how scary it is, you know, reaching out to your parent or just someone, like, they need to know, because it did escalate to a point where my mom did find out, and I don't know what my worst fear of that was, but only positive things came from my mom finding out and being able to love and support me through it. But yeah,
you're so valid in all of that. I mean, thank you for sharing. That was a lot, but I think as kids it's so normal. Like I think as kids, I know for me, I just wanted to be normal. Like as a kid, you just want to feel like you fit in, and you just want to feel like there's nothing wrong with you. I think because kind of like when you are a kid, we don't really know, and we're not really taught enough about, I think, these struggles. And I think this generation is kind of changing that. And obviously kids are becoming a lot more aware now because a lot of us are kind of stepping out and talking about these things. But I feel like before, you know, when we were growing up, because you're 26, right?
Yeah.
See, I'm 25. So we're like same area. Growing up, you just like don't really know. You know what I mean? And I feel like the whole like goal when I was a kid at least was like, just like, it's fine. Like just act normal, just like act unbothered. Like it's all good. Like, and yeah, just any emotion or anything that you're going through, or mental health struggle like depression or anxiety. I think as kids, it's hard for us to even identify what's going on. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I don't feel good, I'm struggling, but what even does that mean? And then we get scared of these big words like depression or anxiety because it feels like there's something wrong with us if we like own that, you know, or that's like we take on that like title. Yeah. And so I think it's so normal that as a kid you struggled, and that, I mean, that sounds terrible. Some of the bullying that you went through, that's probably the worst that I mean that in the nicest way. That's like the worst that I've ever heard of. That's terrible. That's like so scary. Like, I don't even know how you functioned and like
not well
carried on.
Definitely not well. But it's so true. I mean, no one in our generation was talking about mental health. Like, there was no celebrity or actor or singer talking about it. And I genuinely, for so long, I knew something was wrong with me and I didn't know why. And I thought it was wrong that something was wrong with me.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's so normal, and just kind of the way our society is, the way our food supply is, the way everything is. Mm-hmm. The normal, unfortunately, has become to struggle with your mental and physical health. And then as I got older and I found out that a lot of it's genetic and a lot of it's out of my control and it's not my fault. And that was the main thing, is that it's not your fault for having mental health struggles. I think that's one thing that started to bring me some peace.
Yeah, totally. So when did the bullying start for you? Like, how old were you?
I'd say middle school was like the light stuff where, you know, people started being mean to me or starting drama or rumors, just like pretty typical stuff. And that's when I started feeling a little more like isolated. And then I went into high school, and freshman year was going pretty great. You know, I tried out for cheer team. I was doing all sorts of activities, having a lot of fun. And it's funny because this all started over a boy, which I think is just so stupid. But I was in like a big friend group, and there was probably an extension of that friend group. And this one girl liked this boy. I had never spoken to this girl before in my life. I went on one date with this boy. I didn't like him. We didn't kiss. It was nothing. And this girl just made it her life's mission to ruin mine from that moment on. And she partnered up with like someone else in the group, and they just went at me. I mean, to the point where they'd send me on a fake date with a guy so that they all could go laugh at me. Or when they threatened my life and were like, we're waiting for you after school with like one of the seniors and you're not going to make it out of here. So,
and this was in high school?
Yes, freshman year of high school.
Wow.
I mean, it was violent. It was scary. It was never ending because it would happen at school and it would follow me home on the internet. And I didn't have, you know, the strength to not look at what was being posted about me online. I was like, okay, what's going on now? But yeah, they continued and continued. And I finally went to the school when they like vandalized the house, and I saw my mom like crying, cleaning up things they had spray painted on our home. And I went to the school, and the school was like, there's nothing we can do. And of course, and then it made it worse because they found out I went to the school. And it really just got to this point where I was just begging my mom to take me out and transfer me schools.
Yeah.
And finally, about like a year later, we were able to move back to San Diego.
And that helped a lot.
Yeah, that helped a lot. It's funny. I've talked to a lot of people now that I've lived in different cities, and pretty much no one in a city outside of Bakersfield has experienced some of the level of what happened in Bakersfield. And then everyone I meet from Bakersfield is like, oh yeah,
wow,
that's what happens in our town.
So interesting.
I don't know what it is, but yeah.
It's so sad because I think like there's so many faults in the way that things work. And we'll get into so much more of it, but even in, you know, the food that America feeds us, like there's so many things that are faulted. Like the fact that your school didn't want to do anything about what was happening. It's like, these are like serious things that need to change, like systems that are just so broken in so many ways, whether it's school or, you know, doctors, like so many things, therapists, like there's so many things that need to change. And so it's really discouraging to hear you say all that, but it's also encouraging to see you here now and obviously speaking about it and trying to make a change. But yeah, it's just like, I'm like, of course, like a school would like be like, yeah, sorry, there's nothing we can do. It's like, what?
I mean, I even look back now that I'm older and I wonder what those two girls were going through to have put me through that. I'm like, were they okay?
Yeah.
Like, who was raising them?
Yeah.
You know, who was teaching them these things? And I do have a lot of hope. I mean, our generation excites me so much because I've seen more change from our generation than I think almost any generation. You know, we're out here speaking about things, we're being vulnerable, we're implementing programs. That's something I've got involved with where I've worked closely with a few charities that are directly setting up programs, apps. My mom works at a children's hospital and her entire job is care reform for kids' mental health. So she's getting access to, like, she's getting therapy paid for these kids. She's getting rides for the kids to go to therapy because
that's awesome.
Parents have jobs. They can't just leave their job and take the kids. So it excites me a lot, and it's something that I just want to continue to be involved in.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I literally said this on the last episode, so it's funny for everyone watching, they'll know, but I was talking about this with the person I just had on. There's this, well, you know my story. My parents are drug addicts, like the whole thing, right? So there's this guy, his name, I'm trying to remember his name, but he walks Skid Row. He's like a photographer, and he actually interviews like prostitutes, you know, people who have been sexually assaulted, drug addicts, like all these people that are obviously experiencing these really challenging things. He interviews them, and it's so crazy because 90% of the time there's something that happened to them as a kid, whether it's from their parents, a family member, a friend, people at school. There's a trauma, there's a wound, and there's an effect to that, you know? And it's crazy because, you know, he raises all this money and he puts these people up in apartments. I mean, his channel is really big.
Yeah, I need to get his
channel. I literally, the first time I started watching, I just would watch for hours. It's like the most fascinating thing because you just hear these people's life stories and you're like, oh my gosh. But he always talks about, you know, he raises a ton of money for these addicts and sex workers and all these things that have severe trauma from their childhood, and you know, they end up back on the streets. He'll put them up in apartments, he'll do all these things, and then people will always ask him, well, why do you do this? You know, like, what's the purpose of this? And he's like, it's not that I don't care about these people that I'm helping, but I know that the chance of them changing is slim to none because what they know and what they've learned from what they grew up in and the experiences that they had, that will take years to unlearn, and therapy and all these things. So my hope is not that these people will change. It's that this will bring awareness to a bigger issue so the future generation won't be dealing with this. Wow. He's like the most amazing guy ever, but that always sticks with me because like having these conversations is so important, not because we can fix all the problems in the world, but because hopefully it can like, you know, make a change for people and see like, yeah, like when you're getting bullied as a kid, like it's important, like to go tell your parents, to talk to someone, to get help. Like there's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to be ashamed of it. Kind of all the things you said. And so you kind of sharing that is so awesome. And I'll kind of lead out of this part of the conversation with like, what advice would you give to someone who may be in high school or middle school or even elementary and, you know, they're being bullied, but they're embarrassed or scared to ask for help?
Oftentimes it has absolutely, actually I'd correct that and say every single time, it has nothing to do with you. And that's not to make it less painful, but it's to shift the perspective onto whoever's hurting you is hurt so badly that they think for some reason that's going to help. So trying to take that and beat yourself up a little less because of that, because it's not you. Finding a way to reach out to someone, whether it's a teacher, an adult, like just someone you trust. And if they don't respond correctly, go to someone else because unfortunately that's a possibility and it's scary, but it's worth it. But overall, and most of all, I feel like it may feel like the pain's going to be permanent. And that's why I got to a point where I did attempt to take my life. But I was lucky enough to be saved from that moment and survive that. So as someone who's been at death's door before, multiple times, I can promise you that things get better and that it's worth it to just hold on and wait it out. And, you know, looking back now, I'm in therapy. I'm still trying to undo the things that were done to me. I'm trying to figure it out every day so I don't put it onto my kids and my loved ones, my friends. But it's totally possible. It's possible to heal from things. It takes time. But most of all, it's worth it. It's worth it to keep fighting.
That was so sweet and such good advice. Thank you for sharing that. I just am taken back because I think, there's not a lot of people who talk about self-harm or suicide attempts. And I mean, it's obviously a really sensitive subject. But if you're comfortable, do you want to kind of share more about that and your experience with that and how you've overcome that?
Yeah. I mean, I started self-harming back when I was probably 13. And what's so scary is I feel like you hear things or you see things in movies and it gets an idea in your head. And I don't remember where I heard or saw about cutting, but that was ultimately my method of self-harm. It even traces back younger to when I was a really little kid, and I would hurt myself at even like 6 years old because I was definitely born with mental health issues and they just didn't get better due to childhood traumas. I did do a lot of cutting, and I hid it from everyone. I did it in places of my body that people wouldn't see. And it's almost like I wanted to punish myself for something, for being so weird and for being so sad and blaming myself for every bad thing that was happening to me. And that's taken years for me to try to make peace with the fact that it wasn't my fault. And like, again, nothing's wrong with you if you're going through these things. And you know, I would go through a period of time where things would get better, and we moved back to San Diego and things started to get better, and then they started to get worse again. And I mean, I was just missing school like crazy. Like I would just walk out of class sometimes. I got really, really sick. I was in the hospital for a long time. I fought my way back through that. I went through senior year of high school. I haven't talked about this before, but that's when like I lost my virginity to being raped. And it just felt like the entire world was against me. Like one thing about me is when I was born, I was purple and not breathing, and it was really hard to resuscitate me. And since that day, I had looked at that for 18 years. I looked at that as it was a mistake that I survived. And it was an absolute fluke. And that's not what was supposed to happen. Because why would all these horrible things keep happening to me? Like I get knocked down, and the second I start to stand up, I'm knocked back down again. And so ultimately, it was like a month before high school graduation too. Like I couldn't fathom 30 more days of the pain I was in. And I mean, that's what it's all about, is like you want the pain to stop, and you don't have an ounce of belief in your system that things will get better.
Right.
And it's crazy because someone found me and saved me and made me tell my mom. But if I had done that, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't have learned to fly a helicopter. I wouldn't have experienced the happiest moments of my life. I wouldn't be here for my mom as she battles cancer right now. Like there's a million trillion different things that I would be so brokenhearted to miss out on. Yeah. The best moments of my life hadn't happened until after I was 18. Yeah. But it's, you know, it sucks because whenever I do try to talk to kids or talk about this on my platform, it's like I get it. Like I get what they're going through. I remember it as clear as yesterday. And it's just trying to convince people that it'll get better and like hold out for those moments.
I'm just like so taken back. I know everyone watching this is just going to be taken back by not only your vulnerability, which is of course the kind of the theme of this podcast, but I'm so sorry that you went through that in high school, and I'm so sorry that your mom has cancer. I mean, you are just like such a survivor and warrior, and just like, it's just so, I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's just so funny, not funny, but it's like, ironic to hear these things, knowing just how much of just a genuine, safe, sweet person you are, and just the way that when you come in a room, you're just like, you make people feel safe. It's like, of course, you've been through all these hard things that have made you empathetic and kind, and you've been on the other end of things, and you've been struggling, and even admitting, you even said, I'm still trying to figure it out. I always tell people that. I'm like, I'm telling you guys all this, but also I don't know I'm still trying to be okay and like unlearn and heal from all these things that have happened to me. But yeah, I mean, I just resonate with you so much, and I'm so inspired by you. And I know everyone watching this is going to be, just inspired. And I hope that that what you're doing obviously makes an impact and is helping so many people in similar situations, which is so special.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, that was kind of me just like going off on a tangent, but yeah, it's just crazy it's so funny because I feel like, especially on social media, it's becoming more of a thing to obviously talk about all this stuff. But yeah, it's so interesting to see how all of us, to some certain extent or degree, have been through something that has like seriously affected us, and the way that none of us talk about it. It's like, and then you get in a room and you talk about these things, you have these conversations, and you're like, oh my gosh, and so it's like we all share obviously different hardships and experiences and traumas, but it's special to kind of like be able to hear these things, and just, I just know on the other end, the people that are watching this will feel so validated in what they've been through. So it's just so awesome. I'm so inspired. Yeah. So good.
I'm inspired by you and everything you do.
Thank you.
Your wonderful podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been interesting because I think similarly to you, I, obviously have different things that I went through as a kid, but, obviously have a lot of childhood trauma, and I experienced not nearly as severe, but I experienced bullying.
You can never ever compare it, though.
Well, no, I know, but I mean, what you went through is, I mean, again, I'm still just like, taken back. I'm just so proud of that you're here today and just who you are. But I experienced a lot of bullying in like elementary and middle school because I was really overweight. It was something I was always really insecure about. Eating has always been like a comfort for me, in my life. Just everything that I've been through, it's always been something that, has just brought me comfort. And it's so funny, again, to identify these things as an adult. You're like, oh, I can see like why I do this and like why I do that. But as a kid, and not to like make this about me at all or switch the subject, but I never really knew like when I was going to get my next meal because my parents would like disappear. And so I had a really unhealthy relationship with food where either I was having like an excess amount of it. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, like my mom's taking me out to eat. We're doing this. I would just eat everything and just be so excited. Or I like wouldn't have enough food. And so I've never been good with like intuitive eating or like there's a scarcity mindset around food that I've always had, So just trying to heal from that and heal my relationship with food. But it's just so interesting how the things that we go through as kids bleed into our adult lives,
Oh yeah.
We don't really realize it, I think, until we start going to therapy and start kind of understanding all these things.
Putting the puzzle together.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, wait, this actually makes sense. Like it all comes together, And I think it's sad because I think, unfortunately, it's so easy to like just go through life and not really realize that, until you hit rock bottom, kind of like you did, like when you were graduating high school and you had a suicide attempt. And obviously that was so scary. And that probably was like, I have to make a change, like I need help.
Yeah.
Like getting to that point. And that's kind of what I went through when I got divorced and I left the church. I was like, I'm like not okay and I need help. And I didn't even understand all my childhood trauma at the time. I mean, it was all kind of unraveling.
You're so young too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's just crazy when you're like, oh wait, all this is happening and like, I'm not okay, but also then you kind of realize all these other things. But all of that to say, it's just, it's really important that I feel like we talk about how these things, affect us as adults. So I kind of want to go back to, high school. Obviously that happened to you and you knew you needed help. What were the steps that you took to make that change and to get the help that you needed?
It's crazy because there's this guy, Kevin, who I love so much. He jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived.
Wow.
And it's one of those things where if you look at the statistics, a very alarming amount of people who have attempted realized during the attempt they didn't want to do this. Mm-hmm. And it almost like kicks in your survival instinct. You're like, wait a second. No. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, I want to live. And I was very lucky that someone who I thought was at work and wasn't going to receive this goodbye voicemail received it and found me. But it just, it really like it hit me like a flood of emotions, like everything I was going to miss out on. Mm. And I didn't want to miss it. I didn't want to miss my life. And I realized that wasn't what I wanted. It was whatever demon in my head. I don't know. I think of my mental illness as like the enemy, like the little like devil on my shoulder, Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, I don't want that. So I was lucky enough to survive, and I would definitely advise never getting to that point. I don't want anyone to think like about that ever. Because man, did it feel so good when someone did save me. And when I woke up the next day and when I realized what it would have done to everyone in my life, mm-hmm. though there were few people in it, my mom, like I literally cannot imagine. But from there, I definitely went to therapy, which I'm in again right now, working through all that. We
love therapy.
Working through all that
so
stuff.
Good.
And it's so funny because I love therapy, but it took me so long to find a therapist I meshed with. So I kept like giving up and getting frustrated. Mm-hmm. But it's so worth it to find your person, like no matter how unconventional or how many people you need to try.
Right.
Like, it's worth it to find that person. And then for me too, when I wasn't ready to do talk therapy, I found other means of therapy, whether it was horseback riding mm-hmm. or beach time or something. Usually something active is like really good for me, like horseback riding. But
I've actually heard other people say that. Horseback riding is like people say it's like one of the most healing things ever.
Horses are one of the most therapeutic animals on the planet.
Wow.
Because of their prey drive, they read you like a book. Like they feel every emotion in your body. So actually when you're next to a horse, they can tell you a lot about yourself. Like, are you coming off as a calming presence and they feel safe around you? Or are you putting off like anxious energy, aggressive energy, whatever it is? But horses are used for therapy a lot now. And it's really, really cool.
Wow,
whether you're awesome. Riding or working like with a therapist doing groundwork, mm-hmm. it's something I would definitely recommend. It's really cool. But going to therapy, mm-hmm. finding ways to finally reach out and ask for help from people. Medication isn't for everyone, and you should definitely talk to like many people about it. But I was on medication for a little bit because mm-hmm. I had panic attacks that were so bad too, and that was something I had to work through. But I think most of all, being allowed to get older and the privilege of getting older and maturing, and I could feel my brain starting to just like come together and realizing that these things weren't the end of the world anymore.
Yeah.
And also it was kind of nice timing because I graduated and I went into college, and it was the first time I ever had a teacher really passionate about what they did. And I started mm-hmm. having those experiences that kind of helped bring sparks back into my life. That's been the biggest thing. I mean, this year, some of the things that have happened, like I started to slip back into depression, and going on that trip and having those sparks come back to me. Mm-hmm. It's like when you're trying to light something on fire and you get a couple sparks going and then the fire ignites. Like that's mm-hmm. literally what it felt like. Is I had these like small moments that started to bring me back again. But yeah, that's a very long-winded answer because sometimes I don't even fully understand it.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a lot of things, right? Yeah. It's really complex. Healing is, they always say it's like the cheesy line, but it's not linear. It takes time. And I think I relate to you in a lot in the sense of like, yeah, I think when you first start therapy and you first start getting healthy and getting better, and again, medication for some people, medication not for others, totally depends on the situation and your mental health struggles. But whatever it is that you choose to get you to that place where you start to feel better and feel like you kind of have things under control. As I've gotten older, because I started my therapy journey when I was 19, now I'm 25. And similarly, it's hard to find a good therapist, but when you find one, it's so important. And yeah, it's easy to slip back into some of those struggles and kind of feel like, oh gosh, I'm back at ground zero, or wait, I feel this similar feeling, being triggered by a trauma, whatever it is. And yeah, some of those things can creep back up for sure. And sometimes it can just feel like, gosh, wait, like what am I doing? Like I'm here, I'm feeling similar ways. But I think like you said, those little sparks, just reminding you like I'm okay, and things that fill you up, like that girls trip, like that just fills you up. And so doing things, whatever that is for you, things that make you happy, obviously for you, probably what you do with social media and your job and being able to help others, and me being able to do this, like little sparks that kind of keep us, going. But yeah, it's messy and it's confusing, and it's like you never have it all perfect or figured out, even when you think, oh, I think I know like how to be healthy and happy, and, and then you're like, oh, actually, like it ebbs and it flows, it's not perfect. So I relate to you in the sense of, I think I've, experienced anxiety and yeah, like a deep sadness or depression, I mainly struggle with anxiety, is like the main thing. And I've had a lot of panic attacks too. I remember when I first went to my therapist, she was like, so you have like really bad anxiety and high panic. And I was like, oh, great. Okay. Like she made me take the little test, and I was like, that's perfect. But yeah, it's easy to slip back into those things. But I think, like you said, as kind of life goes on, you're like, oh, wait, like I'm okay. I can get out of these moments. And there's so much joy and goodness that is to come and that keeps happening for me as life goes on. And it's all worth it, but it's still confusing and messy and hard,
Yeah. No, that is so important to touch on though, because just because you start to get better and start to figure things out doesn't mean that you're going to have downs, like down days, down weeks, down months, down years. Like it happens and it's normal, and you, as hard as it is, you can't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
But as you get older and with more experience, it starts to get more manageable. Like my panic attacks were so bad, I was having 3 a day. I couldn't go to school. I like wouldn't make it through 2 classes without just shutting down and having to go home. And this last year, I came off my anxiety med for the first time in, like 8 years. But I got there. Like I got to a point that I was worried I'd never get to. And it was a goal of mine. And I, we're like a year off of the medication, and like I'm managing it myself. So you start to have like bigger victories and get there. But it's so normal to have those
kind of slopes too. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's so good. Well, I want to touch kind of, you talked a little bit about it, your health. I know obviously you've been going through something recently, but you said that this was something you even experienced, things when you were younger. You said you were in the hospital. Was it because of health reasons?
Yeah, when I was 17, I got really sick. It started out with like an infection, and then I have something called ARFID, which is avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. So I also have a really bad relationship with food. It's getting better. But I'm scared of most foods, and then most of all, I have emetophobia, which is the fear of vomit. So I was feeling really sick from these medications and just getting sicker and sicker. And while I got sicker, I was, scared to eat.
And so this was, sorry to cut you off, you started depression medication?
Yeah, I was 17.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, actually, no, I wasn't on medication at the time. But I was 17, so this was junior year of high school.
Got it.
And I basically like completely stopped eating because of how sick I was. And I mean, it got to the point where it was like a cracker a day was all I was getting in. And I was dangerously underweight. And like I was 17, I didn't understand how important it is to eat food, and that not eating food does kill you. And so the infection mixed with me not eating landed me in the hospital. And also being that malnourished and starved, started to send me into a heart attack and a stroke. And luckily I was in the hospital when that started happening. It also had me develop a panic attack disorder, full-blown panic attack disorder, because they do studies, and a torture technique is literally starving people because it creates insanity in the brain. So that's something I can't express enough, is feeding yourself. So I was in the hospital for a while. They put me in an eating disorders unit, which I didn't understand, why they made that decision at the time, because I sat through group therapy a lot, and the girls would tell stories about how they would make themselves vomit. And I would just have panic attack on panic attack on panic attack because like I don't want to listen to the vomit stories, and I was just freaking out and spiraling. But I was in the hospital for a while. I was an outpatient for a while. And finally, I was able to get help by going to someone who specialized in emetophobia and ARFID. And I was able to get help. But the medication did help a lot to bring the anxiety to a level where I could like challenge it. And then now I'm like handling it myself.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was like my first experience with health getting kind of scary.
So that was kind of back when you were 18. And then obviously, when did like social media start for you? I know this is kind of an off tangent, but kind of leading from 18, obviously, to when you moved out to LA. And then we'll get more into your health journey and, you know, all the health stuff. But yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was 17 at the time. I graduated high school, and right after I graduated, a couple of my friends were really interested in photography, and they were like, hey, can you like model for me? And I'm like, I don't know how to do that, but sure. And so I started doing like creative, fun photo shoots during that era of Instagram, like 2016, 2017, posting them on Instagram. We're pre-TikTok at this point. I started posting a couple YouTube videos because I was really passionate about it. I grew up acting and singing and all of that. And then it just kind of like snowballed, and I started like growing an audience, and it was so much fun. And then I got reached out to by someone to join a content group. And that's when like I just kind of started couch surfing, making it work, and going full-fledged into this world. I like paused college because my mom's very much like a college person. Like, you know, she came from absolutely nothing. Like my grandpa was homeless for a while, and he joined the army to get out of being homeless. So my mom was a big believer in school. So she was like, we'll give you like 1 semester, you know, go chase your dream. And if it doesn't work, like in 6 months, you're coming back to school.
Right.
So I fully intended on it not working and coming back, but I still have not been back to school. I was going to
say, wait, have you been back to school? I was like, wait, okay. That's so cool. That's awesome. Yeah. I feel like a lot of that stuff I don't know. That kind of fills in the gap for the people watching too, of kind of that time in between. And then you've been here ever since, just crushing it, doing your thing. Yeah, I've just bounced between here in LA and Huntington Beach. But got it. Yeah, for the last few years. Yeah, it's been, how old were you when you first kind of came out here? I think I was able to move up here in 2018. Got it. Okay, so it's been a while. What even year is it? 6 years? Yeah, 6 years. Yeah, I'm like, I don't even know what 2024. I'm like, is it 2024, 2023? That's awesome. So yeah, you've kind of been in it for a long time. And I'm sure there's hopefully positive, but I'm sure there's been negative effects of obviously being in the limelight and having people judge you, comment on your life, like all the things that you kind of, the downside of being in this space, you know? Yeah. So I'm sure you've experienced some of that. But yeah, so kind of catch me up there. So you started therapy, you moved out here. Obviously you started your business. When did you start your business? I started like a smaller business, a merch line, and I teased my first weighted stuffed animal, and that was 2021. And then 2022 is when we started developing Hugs and launching it. Awesome. Can you tell me more about Hugs? Because you say it's a mental health brand. Tell me like all the, like what was kind of the inspiration for that, all of that? Yeah. I would love to hear more. Well, with the panic attacks, I really wanted to find something that didn't have a list of side effects on it. So I really fell in love with weighted blankets. It immediately just like calmed me down. I was like, how does this work? So I did a bunch of research on how the weight literally calms your central nervous system, and it's a natural way to do it, and all the benefits of that. So I was like, what if we put this into a stuffed animal? Because weighted blankets aren't portable. You can't take them places. They're not cute to look at, really. Yeah, totally. So I came up with the idea. I told one of my best friends who had experience in business, and I was kind of expecting him to just be like, that's such a funny idea, like cute. Like we're not doing. But he was like, I'm all in. Like that's such a cool idea. And then through the design and development, we found out that we could make them heatable in the microwave and coolable in the freezer, which I loved because when I have panic attacks, I get really hot and I want something cold on me.
And then when, you know, I'm feeling like sad or down, I like something like warm, like a warm blanket or a warm hugs. So that was really like how we developed the idea. And then just 10% of our animal of the month goes directly to mental health charities. And they're ones that I vetted and make sure that the money's doing something. Because that was really important to me. I was like, I don't want to just watch the money, like not care where the money goes. Like I want to know exactly where it's going and that it's impacting people. And then overall, the brand is just, I think one of my goals with the brand is I think it's so cool that you could have this weighted stuffed animal on your couch and it could be kind of a conversation starter, or you can travel with it and like spread the word, and it can kind of be a way to maybe destigmatize the conversation a little bit, where it's like, oh, I have trouble sleeping too. I have anxiety too.
And it's kind of a cute little thing too, which makes it like a little less intimidating to be like, yeah, like I struggle with this. So this is my little helper.
Little
like
cow.
That's so cute. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, because I didn't know too much about your brand, but that's so cool to hear. And that's awesome. I'm proud of you. So cool. That's awesome. And it's so cute. Now Coco's going to love it. And I literally just started my period today. So it's going to be perfect for me. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what's been going on recently. Which was kind of initially what I really wanted to talk with you about, because I feel like a lot of people struggle with this. But yeah, even me, when I tried to do information on it, it was hard to understand. It seems so complex and like a lot and overwhelming. And I didn't realize how many people actually struggle and have autoimmune diseases. So obviously, I just said it, but recently you got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And before that, you had been struggling with your health for, you said, like 4 years, right? You had been in and out of the ER, all these things.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about all of that?
Yeah. I mean, about 4 years ago, I really started struggling. I would see these rashes appearing and they would like welt and bleed. And I'd go to the doctor and the doctor's like, well, it's not fungal, it's not bacterial, it's not eczema. We don't know what it is. Here's some steroid cream. Which like will play into the story later. But I started developing these symptoms. I was so tired that I would sleep 12 hours at night, and then I'd need a 6-hour nap during the day. And I didn't even like do anything to push myself very hard. I started like gaining weight uncontrollably. I was working out 5-6 days a week, doing Pilates, boxing. I hadn't changed my eating habits, and out of nowhere, I just gained all this weight. And a lot of it was inflammation. But I was having all these symptoms. I kept going to the doctors. I would go through periods where I got really, really sick and had these flare-ups, and I would end up in the ER. Again, no answers from the doctors. And then it also, I think, played hand in hand with me getting strep throat 12 times in 2 years.
Wow.
And needing my tonsils to get taken out. And then finally this year, thankfully, my mom does work in a hospital, so she kind of sees a lot going on in the medical community. And she was like, hey, you know what? It looks a lot like this is inflammation, and I think something's going on autoimmune related. She was like reading some books. And so we looked into it. I had some blood taken. I had an inflammation urine test, a handful of things. And sure enough, like my ANA came back positive. My inflammation was off the charts. There was like a color chart of like clear as no inflammation and like different shades of pink. And mine was like darker than the darkest shade. It was like bad. My cholesterol was like 3 times what it should be. My like bad LDL, all of my levels were coming back concerning. My heart and my liver being the most concerning. And then we found a program that we were able to get me into where it really is food is medicine based. And I'm 2 months in now, and one of the hardest things I've done, but it has made the biggest change in the entire world. And it sucks because I don't want people to think I'm like a conspiracy theorist, but it is factual. And I've now devoted so much time and energy to research that most of the food in America is straight up poison.
Yeah. 1000%.
Ultimately, what caused this was what I ate mixed with stress, because I loved to work myself to death and stress out. I thought it was somehow impressive that I was killing myself doing what I was doing. And I think some of that plays into our culture as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
In America, it's like the
hustle culture.
You should grind and hustle.
Yeah.
And then I think some of it could also potentially be genetic, because we found out autoimmune disorders run in the family. But ultimately, yeah, food is what dug my grave and to the autoimmune world. And I've learned so much, but most of all, learning what foods cause inflammation and what foods reduce inflammation. And every food falls into that category. So you're either eating something that is producing inflammation or is taking it away. So I'm on a very, very strict diet right now where I'm only eating foods that reduce inflammation. And it was pretty crazy. Like within 1 week, I dropped 10 pounds, which was just pure inflammation weight. It wasn't fat. It was inflammation. And now I'm losing weight at a more normal rate. But that's because the rest of it that I'm burning is now fat.
Right.
But all of my symptoms improved. It took about a month and a half for me to notice my energy. But have you ever taken like a Benadryl?
Yeah.
Or like a sleeping medication? That's how I felt every day of my life.
Oh my goodness.
Like I was dizzy. I could barely keep my eyes open. I didn't know where I was. I couldn't remember conversations. Like I just felt like I was walking through life like half dead.
Yeah.
And it was the worst, most frustrating thing ever. And having doctors repeatedly tell me nothing's wrong with me, it was incredibly frustrating as well. And I was about ready to just give up and be like, I guess this is it. Like,
yeah.
But functional medicine is where I found help, because Western medicine, unfortunately, they don't teach anything about autoimmune right now. They also don't even talk about nutrition in med school. They like skip over that chapter.
Yeah.
They basically are just like, tell people to eat an apple.
Yeah.
But most of all, you know, they teach doctors in Western medicine, and I'm not blaming doctors at all, because doctors are beautiful, wonderful people. I wanted to be one. But it just sucks because that's what they're being taught. Is they're being
right.
taught.
It's a fault in the system.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily like the doctor's fault.
It's
like
the
their
system.
heart. Yeah. Yeah.
But the system teaches them like, here's a drug for every symptom someone will come in with.
Right.
But also what made the autoimmune disorder develop is when you take things like antibiotics, which I had to take 12 times for my strep throat, steroids, anything like that, it completely kills your gut and your microbiome. And I have leaky gut. So my gut is literally leaking bacteria into my bloodstream, making me even sicker than I am. So it was such a compound effect of everything, but it is unfortunate. And I think this is one of the things that we need to change.
Yeah.
Is we need to not accept that the country is poisoning us to make more money. And we need to not accept that med schools aren't teaching new things. It's like, if you're telling me for basically free, or this cost of whatever you eat every day, because it's not more expensive to just eat cleaner. If you're telling me that you could like cure illnesses by just eating differently and not take medications that are expensive, that have a list of side effects, that make you feel icky, you know, like why wouldn't we just do that?
Yeah. My goodness. My like wheels are turning because I'm like, this is something I haven't talked about a ton, but something that I'm really passionate about. And there's a lot of information I still need to learn, but I feel like I've kind of been on this, kind of interesting health journey since I was like in 10th grade. My sister started eating like whole foods and organic. And I was like, okay, like what's this all about, you know? And so I've kind of been on this journey of like, I mean, my personal opinion, I agree with you so much. Like, I try to eat clean, organic foods. Obviously, I still eat other things, you know, but in moderation. But I'm so on the same page with you that America is poisoning us 1000%. The stuff that they put in our food isn't even legal in most countries. Nope. Like Red 40 isn't even legal. Like it's literally so unsafe. It you know, and this is all very hot takes. I know a lot of people are gonna, you know, but like some of these things can cause autism. Like there's so many things that are happening from the way that we're eating and what they're putting in our food. And like you said, Western medicine, it's unfortunate because, you know, 5-year-olds are going into a psychologist, Psychiatrist. Yeah. Why did I think of the word? And they're like, oh yeah, you're depressed and you're anxious. Here's all these medications. Yeah. And it's like, okay, like let's slow down. Like these are all serious things like mental health, physical health. And we're missing the mark so much because the common knowledge that we know is like, oh, go to the doctor and they'll help you and you'll be fine. And unfortunately, again, there are a lot of good, amazing doctors out there that want to do right,
Absolutely.
but they're not getting the proper training. It's like you said, like if it really is as simple, and again, it's not always as simple. I think there is a space for medicine, but I think it should be much smaller than it is, you know? And I think that our first resource should always be the natural way if possible, because like you said, you take a pill bottle, there's side effects, there's all these things, right? So if there is a natural way that we can start to heal and help these certain things that are going on, why would we not do that? And it's like, oh, why are we not doing that? Oh, because if they get us hooked on their resources and their medicine, they make money.
Like billions.
If we're independent and we are able to heal some of these things naturally, they're not making money. You know what I mean? So it's so sad that the world is in this place where we can't even trust, you know, our own systems that like we're supposed to trust. It's like, what do we learn as a kid? Oh, trust your doctor.
Exactly.
Like
why would you question them?
Yeah. And so it's like, then you start to realize like, oh my goodness, like, you know, I can't even, you know, like you said, you were going to doctors for 4 years and you got no answers. You know what I mean? And again, not that that's necessarily their fault, but there's such a fault in the system. And it's so encouraging to hear you say that since you've been, you know, on this new anti-inflammatory diet and lifestyle that things have gotten better for you. But yeah, it's something that's just not talked about because I feel like it's kind of this like weird taboo thing. People don't want to talk about it. And kind of like you said, people are always like, oh, are you one of those people who thinks like food heals? And like, you know what I mean? Like there's this weird stigma.
There's so many stigmas around it. I
mean,
the thing is though, it's cold hard facts. Like it's cold hard information. They shove so many chickens in, and I eat meat. This isn't me telling people to not eat meat. So it's not even coming from a biased point of view, but they shove so many chickens in a room that they like cut each other and bleed and cause infections. So they started pumping all the chickens full of antibiotics. Well, when you eat that, you become antibiotic resistant and you have all these drugs pumping through your system, also causing your gut to potentially leak. So there's so many resources out there. I mean, even just going to another country and seeing how they live and how
just
clean their food is.
How you feel like when I go to Europe.
They have.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I will eat. And like when I'm here, like again, I try to eat from like organic produce, you know, from like safe grocery stores, all these things. But it's sad because even some of the like nicer grocery stores like spray their fruit with the pesticides and stuff. The fruit wax, like Whole Foods. Now they put wax on all their fruit, which is so unfortunate. But it's crazy because you go and the food just like you can eat anything. And it's like you feel amazing.
Oh, I mean, you know, if you're ever in Europe and you're staying in someone's house, their fridges are so small because they go get fresh food every couple days. That's why there's a market on every corner because they're not putting all of these preservatives in their food. You don't go to Costco and stock up for a month. Like every couple of days, you're going to get fresh food. And I mean, even just tracing it back to how we lived years ago when we're living in villages, it's like what were our bodies meant to do? Well, we were meant to get sunlight. We're meant to socialize with other human beings. We're meant to eat food. And even that kind of breaks down to some of the things I do today where it's like intermittent fasting and the way I eat. Even those things I am playing into like what we were meant to do, what we did for thousands of years before things changed. But I think so much of it boils down to just how we treat ourselves and looking at as who we used to be as a society. And it's like now it's hard to socialize, to get sunlight, to get exercise, whereas that used to be our day to day.
Now we're all inside on our phones, eating all of our preservatives and GMOs and you know, all these food dyes and gums and all these like inflammatory things because that's in all of the food. It's crazy. You even go, I don't know, have you ever heard of the app Yuka?
No.
Oh my gosh. Well, you should talk to whatever program you're doing, talk to them to make sure it's like all good. Cause I don't know how like 100% guaranteed it is, but from what I've heard and what I've researched, it's good. It's this little app that you can take to the grocery store or wherever.
Oh, is it like EWG?
Yeah, you'll like scan it and it will tell you like any harmful ingredients or anything that like, you know, could be inflammatory. So it'll give it like ratings on like 1 to 100. It's so crazy. You'll even go into a store like a Whole Foods or a Sprouts or whatever, and sometimes you'll scan something that you're like, oh, this is good. This is great. Like, this doesn't have anything. And then you're like, oh my gosh.
Well, also, like, why? Like, why do we add things when we know how good food tastes?
Yeah, it's like something doesn't need more than 5 ingredients. Like, you know, when you look at a label, I always tell people, I'm like, if something has a list of ingredients and they're not like legit ingredients, if it's something you don't know how to pronounce,
exactly,
you don't want it. Yeah, you don't want it in your body.
Well, I mean, almond milk is so delicious. Why does it need a gum?
Yes. Okay. This is so funny, guys. So I've been making homemade almond milk, if anyone knows. And it's because obviously there are some brands like almond milk.
That's what I use.
Brand. Yeah. Like that brand is awesome. It has like 4 ingredients: salt, almonds, water, and then something else. Or maybe it's only the 3. But yeah, so there are some brands that actually just, you know, use those. But if you go to any of your local coffee shops, Starbucks, wherever, they're using Oatly, they're using Silk. And if you actually read the ingredients in the almond and the oat milk, it's sunflower oil, gums, preservatives, like hardly even, I mean, the main ingredient is like hardly even the oats or the almonds.
Yeah, it's not even in there.
Why is there all this crap in this? Like, what is happening? And so there's this big like, oh, nut milks are better for you. But I'm like, they're actually worse for you unless you get them with cleaner ingredients. So I've been making homemade almond milk. So I made Lexi some, so she's going to try it. But it's crazy, like you said, like, why are we not going back to kind of the way that things were when we look back? Like, people were making their own bread. They were making these, like, their own things. And the source and the quality matters so much. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy because I feel like that, like, people know that, but it is kind of a rabbit hole, and you probably agree with this. Like, once you start getting into that space and researching and learning about it, it's like a lot.
It is a lot.
Like, you start uncovering a lot of things, and so it's like it can be overwhelming for people.
I mean, I joined this program, and it's a wonderful, amazing doctor. He has some great books and resources. His name's Dr. Will Cole. But they sat me down and they went over my numbers with me, and they're like, I mean, at this rate, you're looking at heart disease and cancer, you know, in a few years. Like, that's how bad my numbers were getting. Like, that. Like, I'm a 26-year-old girl. Like, I exercise, I take care of myself.
Yeah, you're like, I shouldn't be in this position.
I shouldn't be facing these health issues. But they sat me down. They're like, okay, well, for the first 30 days, you're only allowed to have cooked vegetables and bone broth. And you can't even have every vegetable because you can't have nightshade vegetables. And the next 30 days, I got a few more foods back, but ultimately, I've completely cut out gluten, dairy, most oils. I literally only have olive oil now, nuts, seeds, nightshade vegetables, sugar, caffeine. I just brought matcha back in, but almost everything. I mean, I literally make everything at home too. And when I try to go out to a restaurant and I ask them to only cook with oil, I wake up with a rash the next day, which is also crazy. But it was a lot of information. They sat me down and I cried, and I took a few days to grieve the fact that I was at the time 26. I'm a 26-year-old that has to make these insane life-changing choices to save my life. But the way I feel right now, and the fact that it's actually given me my life back in a way that I didn't know was possible, and even just helped me to love my body more, because I gained 30 pounds. And I exercised so hard, and I ate so strict, and I was doing all the things the internet told me to do and the trainers told me to do. And I was getting so frustrated because the weight wouldn't come off. And the weight wouldn't come off because it was inflammation, and I had to heal my gut. Yeah. And so that's the thing too, is it just, my heart goes out to everyone else that's struggling with that, and they don't understand why the rashes won't go away, why their energy won't come back, why the weight won't go off. And I mean, a lot of the times it's like, well, actually, all of the time we have to look at the gut. Right. And what's going on with what we're putting in our body. And it's hard. Like, it's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot. That was probably really, discouraging. And like, there was a part of you that probably had to grieve, you know, the sense of like just being able to eat whatever and kind of do whatever and not have to stress about that. And now obviously you've made these like really, really intense changes, but it seems like it's really paying off, and that you're feeling better and you feel like just happier and yeah, just like you can function and have energy and all these things. So that's encouraging to hear, but it is crazy to think, just all that. I even feel like I've been experiencing some of that. I've been trying to find a good holistic doctor here. It's been really hard to find one. But yeah, just checking my gut, all these little things, because it's sad that we kind of, in general, and this ties back to kind of everything we talked about, mental health, physical health, all these things, we kind of have the world against us. It sucks. It's like even the information we feel like the people that we're supposed to trust, the resources we're supposed to trust, a lot of times we can't. Like with therapy, people try therapy and there's some really bad therapists. Then they have a negative experience and they're like, okay. And the school system, how that's set up. Like there's so many things and ways that we're not set up for success in this generation. And it's a lot to like figure out, to be like, okay, wait, actually what I learned about medicine and health isn't what I've that's not actually true. And, like I can't always actually trust a doctor, or they're not always going to be able to fix it. All these things that there's just so much information I feel like that's being withheld from us because it's keeping us sick mentally and physically.
And that pays the bills. That makes the country go round. But I mean,
so sad.
We've seen what TikTok can do, how it can change lives like that. And it's ours. Like these platforms are all ours, our generations. We know how to use it. We know how to utilize it. And we have the opportunity to make a change. We have the opportunity to even get information that we probably couldn't get before.
Totally.
We have so much more going for us that I think we really have such a beautiful opportunity here.
Yeah, so much honesty and transparency, which is cool about TikTok. Like you said, it's like it's run by people. It's not run by the government. It's not filtered, which is interesting and plays into how it's trying to get banned, the whole thing. But yeah, it's cool that we have a space where we are able to share information that's really important. And it's crazy too how, you said this, like, honestly, it's going back. It's going back to the basics. It's going back to the way that people used to live. Like they ate the things that were on the earth, like meat and vegetables and things that grew from the ground, right? Like that's what it all started on, right? And sunlight. And, now we're in this kind of artificial world where everything is, made in a lab. And even, our phones, it's like there's so many things that are used to control us. When, again, back in the day, it was like you hung out with your friends. You probably knew 300 people in your whole entire life. And, you ate your food from your farm and like, all these things are your garden. And now it's like it's just so different. Like the government in the world is lying to you. And it's sad. It's so sad. But I love what you said. It's really encouraging that there's people like you and there's people getting on social media and talking about these things and hopefully bringing information. But it can all feel overwhelming, I think, because there's so much information.
Yeah.
Have you ever like researched something and then been like, oh, like it's just too much?
Oh,
like you get in a rabbit hole on TikTok.
All the time. Absolutely. I mean, with this too, before I figured out that it was autoimmune and leaky gut, I was in such rabbit holes where I was like, I guess I'll try like apple cider vinegar or poppy or like,
yeah.
All those like weird fads or whatever advice was on TikTok that day. But I finally found the right direction and the right rabbit hole to go down. And I don't know, it almost makes me angrier as I go down it because I'm like, how are we going to help these people? Like, what are we going to do? Like, this generation that's just now being brought up, like all of them are looking at diabetes, cancer, all of these heart issues because like the food has continued to get worse. Like, did you know that ranch, I always forget what it's called, but there's a specific thing they put in ranch as well as some other dressings that's as addictive as cocaine. They use it to hook you.
It's like insane.
It's so crazy and it's so disgusting and it's so infuriating, but I just want to like use the anger to fuel me to help.
To make a change.
And I always tell my friends, I'm like, hey, like if you ever want gut advice, like I got you.
You're
I know
let me tell you about
everything
it.
Now. I had to pay for this program, so let me give you the information.
I know. I'm actually so curious about the program because, yeah, like I said, I'm kind of into all of the health stuff, and like I do dairy. I didn't do dairy for a long time. I did first I started with macros, and then I did. Have you ever heard of Medical Medium?
No.
He was it was like this big fad forever ago, but he was the celery juice guy. He was like, oh, drink celery juice on an empty stomach. Like, you remember when that blew up? It was a big thing. So he had this whole anti-inflammatory diet, and it was no, it was no PUFAs, the certain nuts or whatever, no dairy, no sugar, all these things. And so I did that and drank celery juice straight for 4 months. I've done all the things. I was kind of vegan for a second, but now I think obviously quality matters so much. So I do raw dairy now. So I do raw milk, raw cheese, raw butter. Way better. It's crazy because I literally could not do dairy before. I would have milk or ice cream or anything, and my skin would break out. I would get headaches. Even sugar sometimes will still give me headaches, but I'm a little addicted to sugar. It's bad.
I feel you.
But yeah, I would get really bad headaches anytime I would do dairy. I would get constipated, all these things. But for whatever reason with the raw dairy, I am fine.
Well, it's probably all the things they add to the dairy. You know what's so crazy is on a slight tangent topic. With autoimmune, you're also supposed to only really use clean products, like cleaning products, makeup, skincare.
Yep.
So I switched everything in our house to Branch Basics, cleaning products. My boyfriend has allergies so bad. He has scabs in his nose that bleed. He can barely go a second without rubbing. He was miserable and had been to so many doctors. 2 days after I switched all our laundry detergent, all our cleaning products, he has not sniffled since. He's completely cured. And we're that's so weird. Maybe it's a fluke. We go on a trip and stay in an Airbnb. The second he walks in the house, it all comes back.
Wow.
So, I mean, it even just comes down to the cleaning products, what we're putting on our bodies, what we're putting around
everything
us.
that we consume.
Everything.
Yeah.
And it's actually super affordable, especially Blue Land is even more affordable. But it's $4 to refill an entire cleaning product. I'm pretty sure that's cheaper than the Myers on the counter.
Oh yeah. I've seen Branch Basics before. I love 7th Generation. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
That one's really good. And that one's so affordable too. So
yeah, not bad at all.
It's, there's such a misconception that to make these changes, it has to be so expensive. And some things organic fruit, yes, is a little bit more. But I would challenge you to think about how much money you'd have to spend on cancer treatment, heart disease treatment. How much money would you spend to get your life back, to go back and have had enough energy to live your life to the fullest?
Yep.
So that is what I would challenge people to think about if they're struggling with figuring out
how to balance affording the groceries.
And it is balance,
And it is expensive to eat clean and to eat organic, but at the same time, like you said, you are investing in your health and your future. And it's a lot of the things that you do now, kind of your doctor was saying, in the future, this could cause cancer, all these things. So you're preventing and kind of you're paying for that preventative work in the future that you would have to pay for.
Yeah.
And it can feel overwhelming, but I think starting small. It's so funny because I kind of, when I met David, he obviously didn't know anything about clean products, all these things. And so I'd be you need to eat organic and don't use that potty wash. That has this.
You're I want you to live forever with me. You gotta make some changes.
It's so funny, but it feels overwhelming. But you can start small and slowly start going over. Even makeup, it's so funny you say that. I have really bad perioral dermatitis. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but I'll get a really bad rash around my nose, under my eyes. I've gotten it since I was 14. Ouch. I'll have flare-ups occasionally. So the stuff I put on my face has to be so clean. I can't use really any face washes. I use my sister's brand of skincare or the skin balm. It's bison tallow. And then I use clean makeup because I literally cannot, if I use anything, if I put Maybelline on my face, I would break out in the rash.
I've noticed too that when you start healing, I've been healing my gut, I'm healing my skin, everything. I'm now super sensitive to it. So, I sprayed perfume on myself the other day, rash. So it's like I have a really good indicator now of like what I can and can't have. But it's also like, it is so much about balance. Like, I don't want anyone to get overwhelmed and be like, well, I can't change my whole life because I didn't think I could. But I mean, if you're at like my level where it's autoimmune, you really have no choice.
Right.
Like, it's about getting your life back. But for someone who's not struggling as much, it's like, hey, just like take good care of yourself and have that balance. And, you know, so that you don't end up in my position. Like, I wish someone would have told me a few years ago and stopped me so I didn't have to end up with a full-blown autoimmune disease. You know?
Did you ever have, like, do you feel like you ever had any of this information? Were you ever not up until this point?
I mean, I didn't know anything. And like, my mom works in a hospital. Like, I have resources that I'm so grateful for and so sad that other people don't have. I'm like, I figured out half of this because I have hospital resource. Like, she was able to talk to other doctors in the hospital and start to kind of piece things together.
Right.
But I'm like, how else, you know, are we able to get some of this information out there? And so that's why I'm like, well, at least on social media, we can talk about these things.
Which is so cool. I'm so proud of you for talking about it. And I'm honestly like, I kind of want to get your doctor's information and get more of the program's information.
Yeah. I actually have a doctor here I'll tell you about too. Who
is she, or is he?
He's not like 100% holistic,
but he's
a lot
in that
more
range.
on that side. Yeah.
That's awesome. So cool. I kind of wanted to ask you, do you feel like when you got the diagnosis and obviously you've started to heal, do you feel like it's improved your mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always noticed that exercise helped my mental health a lot, which is so funny because your brain always tells you like, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to work out today. And then you do and you feel better. But the eating, I mean, the fact that I've been able to come off an antidepressant that I was dependent on for so long, and I haven't had to take a single anti-anxiety med since then. I've been able to manage my panic attacks. I actually, like, knock on wood, I haven't had a panic attack since I changed my diet to this clean eating. I mean, it's night and day. You could ask anyone close to me, like my mom, my boyfriend have literally cried over the way that they've seen me come back to life. Yeah. Like, my mom's like, I haven't seen this type of energy in you since like 2019.
That's so awesome.
It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, even like you saw me at Big Bear, like I was getting to the height of it. Right. You know? But it's been night and day. I'm really grateful that I was able to get my life back.
Yeah. You've been through so much. You've been through so much. I'm like sitting here, I'm like reflecting on everything we just talked. I'm like, you've been through so much, but you're so inspiring and so strong. And I'm so thankful that you came on today and talked about all these things and, you know, talked about some of your mental health struggles and what you went through as a kid and, you know, now leading up to now and some of the successes and wins, but also kind of just how sometimes life always has something, you know, that there's always things being thrown at us and we have to like figure it out. And I'm sure you can relate to this, but being in our mid-20s, which is scary to say, isn't it crazy when you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, I
don't know where the time went.
Yeah, but it's also cool because I guess a woman's brain develops at like 25. Our frontal cortex or whatever.
I know men are a little later.
Yeah.
But
they get
it.
A little more
get
time.
At 25.
But it's cool because I don't know if you felt like this, but I feel like things kind of like...
Oh, same.
Yeah, it kind of just feels like...
You like feel it. Like you're like, oh...
You're like, wait, okay, it's fine, actually. Like, you kind of start to feel things come together. Now I'm going off on a tangent, but yeah, anyways. Thank you for coming on and sharing all of this. You're amazing. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I'm, like, losing my train of thought because I'm, like, my brain is, like, spinning on so many questions I want to ask you about, like, all the stuff. But we'll do that all off camera. But how can anyone who's watching this support you, follow you, tell us more about where we can find you?
Yeah, it's just at Lexi Hensler on everything. And then my brand Hugs is Hugs with a Z.
Which they're so cute, by the way. She literally brought me some and I love them so much. I'm so excited to use it actually after this because my cramps. Which I feel like my period's gotten worse as I've gotten older, which is weird, but...
Really?
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. I know. I know you're like, oh. Anyways, well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lexi.
Thank you
guys,
so
go
much.
Follow her, go support her, go get a Hugs. And thank you guys so much for watching and being here. It's always so encouraging to shed light on these dark spaces. So you guys know the outro of this. I will talk to you guys in 2 weeks.